Thank you very much. Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to share our thoughts and perspectives as we are joined by this esteemed panel around how AI is driving the digital transformation, and it's helping Africa and others to build smarter, more resilient energy systems all across the energy value chain. One thing that we did want to do really quickly, and the panelists agreed it'd be really quick, was to just let them tell you a little bit about what they do in their day-to-day so that you can have context to the feedback and the guidance that they're going to share today. So with that, Rob, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name's Rob Shapiro, and I'm part of Microsoft's Energy and Resources team. Our team is focused on bringing technology and innovation to solve business problems in the energy sector. And I've been at Microsoft 6 years. Before that, I worked for 17 years at ExxonMobil, and over half of that was on projects around the African continent. So I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Also, thank you to the whole team of the African Energy Week for having us here today, this morning. I'm Jessica Stang, Head of Investor Relations at Calvert International AG. We're a management holding group focusing on the African energy sector across the whole value chain. And of course, AI is an important part of the energy sector, and that's also one of the parts that we're focusing nowadays. And I'm looking forward to talk a little bit about the investor perspective of AI and smart intelligence in the African energy field today.
Hi, good morning. Craig Beebe, Halliburton. Been working in and around Africa for the past 20 years, and this is really exciting for me today because when I started in this industry over 35 years ago, mobile phones weren't even invented or being used, but now AI, the capability of the digital transition, is really improving our ability to find hydrocarbons faster and more safer. And it's a really interesting topic for us today.
Good morning. My name is Benoit. I work for SLB, and I've been doing that for the past 25 years in our digital organization. So I today, myself and my team look after digital innovation in Europe and Africa, and it's really a privilege to be kept on this morning to exchange.
Morning. My name is Tawanda Chuota. I run communications at AIQ. AIQ is a 5-year-old startup based out of Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And we're a combination of ADNOC, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and Presight, which is an AI leader in the UAE. And basically, our mandate is to start bringing AI solutions, tailored industrial AI solutions across the energy value chain. We've already started doing that with ADNOC in the UAE. And my presence here today is to see what the appetite and what the opportunity is to start applying AI to operations in the oil and gas sector in Africa. Thank you so much for being here.
Fantastic. So Benoit, I was hoping that you could help us kind of set the stage and get our conversation started, sharing some of what you see as the current challenges that Africa is facing in the energy sector specifically in terms of efficiency, reliability, and sustainability.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the question. Very interesting question. First, I will say it's always a daunting task to answer a question about Africa, considering the scale. It's not really a country, it's a continent with more than 50 countries, a lot of diversities. So, but I will do my best. So what I see, and maybe I will be a bit myopic on what I see in the digital space, and I will highlight what I see a couple of challenges in the energy space today. The first one, I will talk about the infrastructure. I think if we want to really transform the energy industry in Africa, the infrastructure needs to be ready for that. Access to electricity across the continent being one simple example, and if I want to push further, access to the cloud, access to a latest generation data center, and I'm sure Robert here will talk about that a little bit more from the Microsoft angle. But those basics are going to be needed if we really want to transform using technology like artificial intelligence, what is happening in Africa. The second one I want to maybe highlight is, and I will word it as the legal framework. With the vast amount of different countries, different regulation around all this new technology, I see that sometimes as really an impediment to bring transformation and to bring quickly technology in the energy space. Some example being data regulation, what you can do with the data. Can you have them in a cloud environment, or do they need to be well controlled in an on-premise data center? All those regulations that have been sometime written 10, 20, 30 years ago, I would say are not necessarily updated and up to date to really bring the energy industry forward in the continent. So that's something, and we might discuss it more in this panel. The last one, which is for me the most important as well, is really having the right talent, the right training for people to really use all these intelligence, all those technologies that are being now available. AI is not automagical. You need to have the best people. You need to have the right curriculum in universities. You need to have the right training for your mid-careers, for people that are already working for you, and that's something that needs to happen. And Africa has a young population, has a bright population, but this framework, this support needs to be put in place across all the various countries. One thing I will say as well is maybe not only talking about challenges today, is there are countries where the oil and gas industry, where I'm more focused maybe, is nascent. I will take a country like Uganda, Namibia. So there is also a chance for those countries to really make a technology leap, not having to live with a long and old legacy of technology choices. I think we are at the right position to go forward very quickly. So I will leave it at that, Stephanie.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So as we think about that and we think about the challenges, Tawanda, I know that you've had recent success in the past couple of years in the work that AIQ has been doing. Could you kind of share what you think the opportunities AI creates to facilitate the digital transformation for Africa's energy systems? And what are the key technologies from your perspective that would need to be involved?
Yeah, I'd like to really pick up where my colleague said that this is the right time. The last few days I've been engaged in conversations where, a lot of the players and operators are saying, well, maybe our priorities right now are not around AI, and we've got more pressing issues. And my retort to that is that this is precisely the time, because the pace of innovation and the pace at which AI can have impact, if you're not planning it, implementing it, developing it now, the pace with which you will be left behind in terms of the next wave and general development is exponential. So from our experience, as I say, we are 5 years old. We've been fortunate to have privileged access to ADNOC's operational data. And we see from our experience that the first 2.5 years of our existence was really sitting in-house with subject matter experts from ADNOC and others, and our technology team saying what are the biggest pain points, where are the largest areas that we can see improvements and gains, and what is the ultimate goal in terms of value creation. And I think this is the big thing with AI, that fair enough, we may be in a cycle, a little bit of a hype cycle, but the first thing that any organization in and outside of the energy sector needs to identify is what is the goal that is looking to be achieved. Once you're able to do that, you can then align the business and start getting the processes in place. So over the last 2.5 years, we've been deploying our solutions across the energy value chain, primarily in upstream operations. We've co-developed some products with some of my esteemed colleagues on the panel here, the organizations they represent. And we really do see that the combination of access to good data, subject matter experts sitting side by side with technologists, and the idea of the infrastructure that we spoke about, the compute and the cloud, are imperative. And my rallying call here is for the African continent, policymakers, investors, the operators, to say that it's fundamental to build this ecosystem, because like I said at the beginning of my comments, AI is not a nice to have, it will become an imperative, and it will actually differentiate the successful operators going forward from the ones who fall by the wayside.
Thank you. And Craig, I know when we were prepping for the panel, one thing stood out to me. When we talked about AI and the importance in the ecosystem, you mentioned Halliburton has been working on this for quite some time, like go back a couple of years. Would you like to share anything or add?
Yeah, I think we were talking about this the other day, and the easy barrels have gone. Hydrocarbons, easy barrels have gone a long time ago. So now we need to find hydrocarbons in more difficult, deeper waters, shall we say, offshore, or more locations where 10, 15 years ago they were considered not commercial, but now with the technology and the way that AI is helping us to do that is in various factors. The first one is safety. You know, having AI being able in our side of the business when we're doing the drilling aspect of the wells, being able to do stuck pipe detection or kick detection in real time with AI, looking at the data coming back from the tool phase, coming back up and analyzing that in real time, and is spotting potential issues to make more effective drilling. That's a big advancement, because then you reduce NPT, then you are able to drill that well faster, more safely, and reduce the cost. Because one thing we've all seen in the industry is that when hydrocarbons come harder to discover and develop, you need to make sure the cost is as low as possible and make it safe. And that's a big advancement for us. And also having this data available in a central location, it helps us really bring the next generation of being able to access all that data in front of them, making real-time decisions. AI is never going to take over, but it allows more effective use of that information to be brought to our experts to make more immediate decisions and can give advisories on what's going on. And to me, that's the most fascinating piece of AI is being able to make more effective and safer deliveries of wells. Really, you know, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And Rob, of course, we'd love to hear your perspective, and especially some of the capabilities and what Microsoft is driving within their ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks. And I first just want to acknowledge the partners that we have on the stage and the great work that they're doing. AIQ and SLB and Halliburton are partners of ours that we work together with solving these problems. And if you haven't seen the work that they're doing, you know, I highly recommend you take a look. With the question, I'd almost say, instead of asking what can AI help with in terms of solving these problems, I'd say what can't it help with, because it can pretty much help with all of the problems and the challenges that the energy sector has. I'll give an example that maybe you haven't thought about. One of the challenges in the energy sector in Africa and globally is the permitting process. It can be a really challenging, arduous process. In the nuclear industry, for example, it could take 7 to 12 years to get a new project permitted. And so what we're doing is using Gen AI to help solve for this problem, looking at historical regulatory data, feeding that into our algorithms so that the companies can then use Gen AI to make that process faster and to build those reports and documents that they need much, much faster. So we're seeing companies cut that time by 40%, which not only saves time, but it saves millions of dollars. And so this is just one example of many where we're seeing AI change the landscape in the energy sector.
Fantastic. And if we switch a little bit, so we've heard about value creation, we've obviously how technology can solve some of the more critical pieces, such as the help with the legal frameworks, the permitting, all of those pieces. So Jessica, in what ways do you think AI can contribute to building more resilient energy systems? Not to just withstand the environmental conditions, but also for the operational conditions.
So from an investor perspective, of course, in the African energy sector, there's a lot of issues with the efficiency of the grid. So I think also from a perspective, from an investor perspective, of course, if you lose energy, of course, kilowatts, you lose also money, you lose revenue, and it makes projects not bankable. And I think efficiency is a really key to make like these projects bankable, to make it investor friendly. And we believe that AI is not only a tool to make the grid smarter, but also a tool to de-risk investments in the African energy sphere. And I think that's why it's important not to oversee this, to really implement it, and to make to really not oversee it, and to really have a focus on AI, because it's a really important tool to make the return of investment higher, and to make the energy sector also more investor friendly. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Benoit, coming back to you, you did such a great job setting the stage for us. Where do you see AI contributing the most?
Oh, very interesting question. So I strongly believe that AI is a transformative technology. Where it will contribute the most, I will claim the jury is still out, but let me give some area where I think we will see a tremendous value. So Craig already mentioned the use of AI in drilling. This is a reality today. We see the value. So that's one that I think will continue getting refined and more powerful to drill better, safer, faster, cheaper wells. That's this transformation has started, and I think if we regroup in a couple of years, we would be surprised by what we have achieved. I don't think we can really predict what will be achieved in that space in a couple of years. One thing that has really impressed me as well with AI, it's in the production space, oil and gas production space, is there are problems that have never really be solved because of the complexity of the physics around fluid transportation. I mean, it's a pretty complex physics problem to simulate. And we started looking at can we ignore, I don't like saying it, but can we ignore the science and have a purely data-driven, train a model on data and see if it can predict some difficult to explain behaviors? And the reality is it can. How can we bring that in operation? I think this is what we will have to crack. But we can already see today artificial intelligence solving problems that conventional science has not been able to. And that's a little bit mind-blowing for our experts, for us, and for our industry. And the reason it's not going to be easy to bring into operation is there's still a gap in AI, which is how can you guarantee predictability, explainability, and consistency of the answer. It's easy. I would say it's easy. It's fine to use AI to make a proof of concept on things that cannot be done any other way. But when you have to implement this algorithm on an FPSO where you have billion of investment, HSE concern, and so on. This is what we'll have to crack as an industry together. How can we bring those techniques in the real life with sometime not being able to explain fully how they work and why they work. And it is a reality today. The techniques around artificial intelligence, the mass behind it, are not fully understood. Nobody will claim against that. They are not fully understood. So it means, how can we trust this technology, bring it in the real world without fully understanding it? There is something that needs to be addressed here. But when I see what it can do, it is genuinely mind-blowing.
Wonderful. So Tawanda, what would you add?
The fact that AI is pervasive and that there are gains, exponential gains that can be achieved across the value chain. In the UAE and in Abu Dhabi, we've coined a phrase, right, that from the control room to the boardroom, AI can have impact. So which is to say, from all manner of field operations all the way through to business processes and workflows, and to board level decision making, strategic view, we see there being an extreme benefit and opportunity to drive forward and accelerate processes. We also have this idea of moving towards this era of agentic AI, where we start seeing very specific AI models being developed for certain workflows that give back time, that give expertise, that allow a large and very specific ability to forecast. And as my colleagues have said, AI is not meant to be replacing people and replacing the talent and the experience. It's meant to allow us to do things faster, quicker, more safely, and take back time, from repetitive or mundane kind of functions. So we only see an upside, and with all the fair points about the amount of complexity and some of the unknowns in terms of developing this pretty nascent technology, we always focus on the business case, and we always focus on the value creation, of which we see a fantastic ongoing opportunity.
Amazing. And Craig, so one of the things that Tawanda called out was safety. And I know with Halliburton, especially across all of your capabilities, safety is always a high priority. What would you add through that lens around what AI can and what it shouldn't do?
Yes, I think it's a really good question. And I think I was just thinking about the answer I was hearing here. And just to talk about the safety piece, it's invasive in a good sense in all parts of our business lines. And I'll just talk about a couple of examples about, we have in the US very large hydraulic fracturing fleets. And if you've ever seen a frac fleet in the US, they are just an immense piece of hardware, many tons of metal, or driving very high-pressure pumps. And over the last number of years, we've been incorporating sensors on all this equipment. And these sensors are getting all this data, and from machine learning, you're able to do predictive awareness of which of these machines need servicing, it isn't running correctly. And your comment about sometimes we don't know how it works, the people on the field are saying, we would never have known that piece of unit was needing requirements to be shut down because it was very close to failing, or there was a critical issue and they were able to stop the work and not have a safety incident. That to me is an amazing piece. And also on the rigs, when you're drilling the holes, just coming back to some of the amount of data we're able to get from the tool face these days to go into real-time reservoir models whilst you're drilling, to really predict where not to drill to have those problems and safety. And that to me is an amazing piece where you're able to make real-time decisions through AI allowing you, and it almost gives you like a traffic light. I mean, I'll keep it simple, but it will tell you in advance, you really should not be going here because we don't think this is actually going to be safe. And that to me is a big success.
And Rob, so you talked about the permitting, and we heard about how it can apply to safety. What are some of the other areas of opportunity that Microsoft sees?
Yeah, in particular, when it comes to resiliency of the energy systems, there's a lot of applications, everything from predictive maintenance to energy demand forecasting to optimization of the power grid. Another one that I want to go a little deeper on is on emissions, and in particular methane. On Tuesday, TotalEnergies in the keynote address mentioned that they were deploying 30,000 methane detection sensors around Africa. And the question I would have is, where exactly are you placing those? And this is where AI can help. So when you think about methane, methane is challenging because it leaks from a variety of disparate sources. It's invisible, it disperses rapidly. And so where you put your sensors is incredibly important. With AI, we're using AI-generated insights, looking at meteorological data, geospatial data, and historical leak rate data, combining that with atmospheric models to understand the best place to put those sensors. So not only do you save money because you need less sensors, but also you're able to detect those leaks much, much faster than before. Then on top of that, once the leaks are detected, we're using agentic AI solutions like Tawanda was talking about that are able to create an incident report and dispatch a technician with the right equipment to go out and fix that leak immediately. So it's a solution that combines different types of AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, and machine learning, all together solving one of the biggest problems that we have in the industry.
And so, Jessica, when I think about probably what you're looking at every day, what you're hearing every day, and the investors that you're working with, how do you see governments and private sectors coming together as all of those key stakeholders collaborate to bring and create an enabling environment for AI within the energy ecosystem?
So I think from the government side, clear regulations are key. So for example, we are looking also not only an AI system, for example, bringing efficiency in the grid, but also how can we create AI data center in Africa, for example, with access energy, because I think AI data center will play also a crucial role in powering the energy grid. And here we came across that there are often gray zones in the whole AI data center in terms of regulation. So of course it makes also harder for investors to get into these markets like in Africa because they don't know what is actually legal, what can we do, what are the possibilities. So I think it's crucial for the government to create like clear regulations, also in terms of data access and so to make it investor friendly, also to create like public-private partnerships and blended finances to make to de-risk like the investments and to make it more friendly for investors. But also in terms from the investor, of course, capital is key. And I think that's also a crucial role from the private sector that they need to bring capital. But also, as we mentioned here on the panel, skills is critical. AI is not replacing manpower. It's just creating more value to the work. And I think that's also a crucial role from the private sector that they need skill, develop local content, that the local people in Africa are able to use this new technology. And I think that's also very crucial and a crucial role from the private sector that they make sure that the whole value chain is in Africa's hand, basically, that it's like not like external people controlling the whole market, that Africa itself can control the energy grid. And I think that's a really important part. And also innovation. Of course, we have like here a lot of companies that are creating innovation, and I think that's also a crucial key from the private sector, also maybe collaborating with the science, like with universities, that we have more innovation in the sector and that Africa's able, we see it very well, for example, in the fintech. Africa really leapfrogged, and I think that's also a great potential in the energy AI sector, that leapfrogging is a really great key, and I think that's what we should look into, and that government and private sector are working hand in hand to create like a nourished environment for the AI systems.
So when you think of, and you speak of leapfrogging, you're thinking about, don't just think about the next 1 to 2 years, be thinking about long-term and
Exactly.
jumping
Yes.
towards it.
Exactly.
I think that's great feedback and guidance. And with that, you know, one of the pieces that when I think about everything that's been shared, there's a couple of key themes that just consistently come through. Data, talent, and just the ability and the opportunity that AI presents. And with the last part of our segment, what I wanted to do was just give each of you the opportunity to share with the audience as they're potentially in their journeys, starting their journeys. What would be your one key takeaway that you would want them to know from your perspective? And we'll start with you, Rob.
Okay. So what I would say is, and Tawana touched on it a little bit, the pace of change is so incredibly fast right now that if we're not careful, we're going to be left behind. So we often talk about technology adoption curves, and I'll give some examples. The cell phone took 16 years to reach 100 million users. The internet took 7 years to reach 100 million users. Facebook took 4.5 years to get to 100 million users. That was considered incredibly fast. ChatGPT took 2 months to get to 100 million users. When you are dealing with technology that's moving that quickly into the hands of people, and it's evolving, ChatGPT is not what it was when it first came out. It's much more advanced. We have to stay on top of it. We have to keep the skilling of all of our people up. The companies need to accelerate. Otherwise, we will be left behind.
Yeah, I can only 100% agree with what Rob was saying, but also from an investment perspective, to see AI as a de-risking tool, I think that's the most important thing. It can help to make the whole investment environment in Africa more attractive, and I think it's really important to focus on AI and to improve it and to make Africa's energy sector like a digital tool that it's like a really great case of investment, and yeah.
Absolutely. I think AI is going to be a core part of Halliburton's usage throughout the whole value chain, from everything from purchasing to monitoring to drilling, making decisions. And we're embracing that in Halliburton to be able to make effective use of it. And to me, my simple mind sometimes is that I see AI being like the new lubrication of the whole chain, because it's going to play an integral part of everything, and to ignore it at your peril, embrace it safely and efficiently is what we have to do, and we are doing, and to make, because today, as you say, the pace of technology, we were putting like fiber optics down the well. And just all the sensor, all the information coming back, we didn't know what to do with it 2 years ago. Now, through machine learning and AI, we're now getting decisions and information we didn't even thought possible. Just go used to it. We didn't know how it was being making these predictions. But now we're getting that information, which is leapfrogging our ability to improve. That's the fascinating thing to me, is how it's helping us to improve, do things safer, more accurately, at a lower cost. That, to me, is amazing.
Et moi?
A lot has already been said, so maybe I will repeat some points, but the first one is in 2025 and going forward, a company that does not embrace AI across their value stream will become irrelevant. It might not take 1 year, 2 years, but they will become irrelevant. The second thing is, what is very important to me in an organization, and maybe I will reflect on what we do in SLB, is you need to have the right talent. Using AI technology is not necessarily trivial. It brings tremendous value, but it's not trivial. So you need to have the best people. You need to have the best talent, and you need to train them and continue developing them in that space. And you surely have read in the financial press or any other press what is happening in the US, where the Meta, OpenAI company of this world are fighting with millions of dollars to attract the best AI engineer or AI scientist. It's a reality. You need to have the best people. And the last one, and I think we are a good example here on this panel. You need to have the right partners when you engage into an AI transformation in your company. And this is what we do, and this is why I encourage everybody doing, partnering with some small startups that have some really golden nuggets of AI, partnering with some mid-size software company, independent technology vendors, and also obviously partnering with the large cloud provider like Microsoft. So it's to me, it's an important part of the journey.
And Tawanda.
Yeah, for me, just a couple of comments. That number one is the fact that make no joke about it. Digital transformation, especially enterprise-level digital transformation projects, are difficult, notoriously difficult. The vast majority of digitization and AI programs within large corporates fail for any number of reasons, whether it's what the focus is of the transformation, what the outcome is, whether it is trying to get buy-in from across the organization. So it's not an easy thing to achieve, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type approach. That's the difficult side of it. The upside is that should there be a strategic vision of what is set to be achieved, the potential to achieve exponentially and create significant value is ripe for the taking. And as my colleague said, and I said earlier, that the pace of change makes it such that should you be left behind this particular curve, it is almost impossible to then close the gap. And then the second point that's really dear to my heart is having the word intelligence and intelligence era in this title of this panel. In Abu Dhabi and the UAE, the government, together with local and international partners, are driving forward what they consider the development of the intelligence grid, which is to say that ultimately, intelligence should become like a utility across society, across businesses, across organizations, that the complexity of the electricity that's running through our homes and in this facility, but the simplicity with which turning a switch on, and there you have the electricity. Similarly, we are looking to build an intelligence grid such that intelligence is on tap and a utility type function, that everything that's necessary in the background is being taken care of. And that's from a macro level, that's from a policy level, that's from a technology level, that's from end user products and solutions. But this idea of the intelligence grid, and I would like to see Africans and African countries not try and put out and see these types of developments and investments as something that are Western or something that are based in the Gulf because there's their resources there. That type of infrastructure investment needs to be done now, because this is the way humanity, the direction of humanity. And to reiterate it one more time, that those who do not jump aboard this development technology are going to be left behind, and it will be almost impossible to close the gap. So I think this idea of really a concerted effort to build a new type of economy, a new type of society based off of the capabilities of digitalization and AI is a must.
Thank you. And thank you to all of the panelists. Thank you for attending today. We would love if you have any questions. I'm sure we'll hang around outside for a little bit to take them. But we hope that you got tremendous value from today's conversation, and we look forward to seeing how all of you take this, run with it, and just keep running towards the goals, because, of course, no one wants to be left behind. I know I don't. So thanks again, and everyone, enjoy the rest of day 3.